Hey, this is Mad Matt from Budget Boosting. Today we're going to talk about something that can be quite a pain, depending on what vehicle it is. But pretty much the newer vehicles, like this Dodge truck for example, with a 318 V8, we're going to do what's called the freeze plugs. Because sometimes your truck has one of those leaks that you're trying to find, and it's a coolant leak, and you're like, where is this coolant leak coming from? It seems to be coming from under the engine mount. Well, take a look at this thing. There's mounts. Here's your engine mount, and there's a freeze plug directly under it. Now come on, guys. I mean, you can't do nothing about this. There's a reason that they design them like this, because they want to make it the biggest pain in the butt humanly possible for the people that try to work on their own car. And since, working on a car costs, $100 and something an hour labor, and of course something like this is going to take probably about, at least 20 hours of labor, because you got to remove the engine first. Because a lot of these freeze plugs, like this one, is the engine mount. And then say you get lucky and remove one engine mount and have the weight on the engine, you're able to do it. But then you got these ones that leak. You have to pull the transmission off or pull the engine out to change these kind of freeze plugs that are on the back of the block. So you got to pull the transmission off first just to get to these engine mounts, or just to get to these freeze plugs. They're terrible. But that's the way you have to fix these really hard to get to water leaks, because it's one of those things. So first step is you got to take the engine out, because most of these freeze plugs are not accessible with the engine in the car. So we took the engine out. Here it is. Since they took engine out for lots of reasons anyway, the transmission was having issues, so they pulled the engine out. So here we are. Alright, I'm going to show you how to remove a freeze plug, then show you how to install a brand new one. And these are the ones that you have to remove the transmission to get to. So imagine you just remove this transmission. Save you a bunch of time right there. You remove the transmission. There it is. Removed. Alright, then you find yourself a nice tool called the hammer. The hammer! One of a mechanic's favorite tools if things get too bad. The hammer. But you don't want to beat on your project, because then it might break. So, then you get a hammer, and then you get Mr. Chisel, which was down here. Mr. Chisel. And I usually have a couple kind of chisels on me, because sometimes they want to be a pain, so you got to change. So I'll put this chisel right here and work with this chisel here. So I sprayed a little liquid wrench here just to try to penetrate some of the corrosion, because these are like made of a mild steel and an engine block is cast iron, so they kind of like to grab each other really well. And plus I also have some handy vice grips right here, because once you do get it to the point, you have to grab the vice grips to get it out. So I'll set these to the side as well. Okay, then you got to talk to your engine too. Hey, be good. Come out the first time. Don't give me a bunch of stuff. So sometimes you got to talk to your engine. Alright, especially Chrysler, because it makes most people cry. See if I can get it broke loose. See, there's an example of a water leak. And what happens to these freeze plugs eventually? They'll eventually start to leak. They'll either corrode, or they'll kind of loosen themselves over the years. But there's an example of a water leak caused by a freeze plug. I just caused it with this chisel because I'm trying to remove it. Well, here we go. Oh, that was fun. Oh yeah, look at that. Got a geyser. You got to try to twist it. Then you can pull it out with some vice grips, but this one's being kind of stubborn. There we go. That's the moment you're looking for. You tap it just enough to get it on the side. You take the handy vice grips, grab it and take it out. there's old, ugly, nasty freeze plug. As you can see, sometimes they fail by corroding so bad, they eventually corrode themselves a hole and do that. I kind of helped it out with the chisel this time, but that's what eventually happens when they fail. See that rough looking stuff? That's corrosion. That would have eventually, it's all crunchy and everything. That corrosion would have eventually made the hole that I made with the chisel, and it would have done this. So, you know what these are good for? That's what they're good for. Okay, now, take a rag and clean it out. There's all kinds of nastiness in there, so I think we'll just get something to scoop out all the nasty stuff. It looks like somebody tried to put a bunch of stop leak in here because you see all these chunks of yummy stuff that someone stuck in the coolant system to try to stop the leaks. So you try to get all these critters out of here. Then you follow it up with a rag. Yeah, this engine's going to really need a good flush before you put the new fluid in. So always remember, when you're working on the cooling system, when you get done, give your whole engine and cooling system a good flush, a good cooling system flush to get all these little critters out of there so it doesn't run through your heater core and your radiator and clog stuff up. So, especially when you see such great stuff coming out of here. I'm going to try to clean you out now, because the next step is you want to take some light sandpaper and work the surface, because there's corrosion around here, and you want to clean all that up before you put a new freeze plug on so it has some good adhesion. So we're going to give it a little score in here, kind of like you would when you put new pistons in an engine. You do like a honing, you know, just to clean your surface real good. So we're cleaning our surface really good before we put new freeze plugs in. Nice good sanding. Well, get all that nasty stuff out of there. Then again, hit it again with the rag to clean all that stuff out. Make a nice hard surface, a nice smooth surface for the new freeze plug to grip to. And then find Mr. Freeze Plug and find the closest socket to it to slowly press it in. There we go. Finally got that little critter in there. It was being kind of a pain, but with enough creative hammering, I got it in there, and it looks like it's in there nice and seated uniformly all the way around. Same with the brass one. The brass ones are a lot easier to work with than the metal ones, because the mild steel / metal ones, they're harder to form as you press them in, where the brass is more friendly. It presses right in and grips immediately. These ones want to pop out on you a few times, like what happened. So, we're not going to show you how to do every one of these, but there are some more on these Dodge engines, like these 318s and 360s, where they're under the engine mounts. So it's the same thing as what I just showed you, except you have to remove the engine mount to get to it, see? So I'm not going to bother showing you every one of these, because they're all the same, with the exception of you have to take off the engine mount, do it, then put it back on. Then of course put your engine back in, your transmission and all that fun stuff, which is a whole heck of a lot of work. But think about it the other way. You could take it to a shop and spend maybe a couple $1,000s. So you're saving yourself a couple grand, because with all the labor that's involved in all of this, you would pay a shop a couple grand. I know you would. That's just labor. The parts are cheap. The parts are like pocket change. You could buy a whole set of freeze plugs for less than 10 bucks. Roundabout. And the labor, as you can imagine, you have to take out the engine, separate the transmission, work with it, a little blood, sweat, and beer, you know, that kind of thing, to work on your patience in order to attack this kind of thing. But while your engine's out, you might as well change all those hard-to-reach gaskets, like your intake manifold gaskets, valve cover gaskets, oil pan gaskets, any kind of gasket you can imagine on changing, because that's going to save you a whole heck of a lot of fun later on when these gaskets start leaking on you. So, that being said, we're done here for today. And thanks for watching us at Budget Boosting. If you like us, like our YouTube page. like Facebook page. Check out our budgetboosting.com. And of course, like I say every time, our window stickers, which are not selling like they should. But hey, budget boost your car today. They're great stickers. Guess everybody just hasn't figured that out yet. But hey, and remember, like I always say, knowledge is power. It's horsepower. We were showing the future engine of this car. That 4.1 engine is almost done right now. It started out as a 4.1 252 cubic inch Buick V6. And they put them in like 84 Buick Regals. And this engine is a stroker. So basically when it's all said and done, this 4.1 Buick is going to be almost a 4.6 and have over 274 cubic inches compared to 231 here.